Praise to our Lord Jesus Christ. Do we normally plan the things that we do? I suppose, yes, sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. Well, are we aware that God is a good planner, and He is indeed very, very meticulous? If we look in the book of Genesis, we can see that God carefully created the world in 7 days. Each day is a new creation, and He rested on the seventh day. That shows God planned carefully what He wants to do. Actually, as God, He can easily create all this in the blink of an eye, but He didn't do that. Instead, it looks like He takes His time. When we look at Exodus chapter 25 to 27, we can see how extremely meticulous God is. He is so particular when He detailed to Moses how to go about constructing the tabernacles, the measurements, types of materials to use, etc. What does this mean? It goes to show how God planned what He wants to do, and He does it so meticulously, to every tiny detail, so that what is to glorify and honor Him are made in perfection. Now, let's look at what Jesus said about planning. In Luke chapter 14, verses 25 to 33, when Jesus was addressing a great crowd that had followed Him, He had made it very clear what one must do in order to be His disciple, which is not easy as one thinks. Well, in verses 26 to 27, Jesus put it bluntly that, I quote, "If anyone comes to me without hating his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." While in verse 33, Jesus goes on to say, "In the same way, every one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple." Okay, all these verses basically explain that to be Jesus' disciples, any attachments one has with their families or possessions should not be in the way or be a hindrance of a total commitment one should give towards Jesus, because one has to be ready to accept persecution and suffering. In respect to all these qualities, Jesus stressed on the importance of planning when He said in verses 28 to 32, I quote, "Which of you, wishing to construct a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers shall laugh at him and say, 'This one began to build, but did not have the resources to finish.' Or what king marching into battle will not first sit down and decide whether with 10,000 troops he can successfully oppose another king advancing upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms." In respect to what Jesus has said about planning, He reminds us that we must make a realistic assessment of the hardship and cost in discipleship. So, to me, this is our cross that we have to carry. How do we relate what God's act of being a meticulous planner and what Jesus has said about planning and discipleship in our daily lives? Spiritually, I will take the path of reflecting on how best I can serve our Lord Jesus Christ. Meanwhile, on the more human side, I feel that it is also important to always plan ahead in what we do, especially to balance between our needs and wants. In this respect, I feel that it is important to think with our mind and not our heart. I feel that our heart will influence what we want, but our mind will let us think rationally whether what we want is actually what we need. Therefore, personally, I will let my mind think and decide because more often than not, the heart that decides what we want is actually what we don't need. So, taking into considerations Jesus' advice on planning, I feel that it will be more prudent if one plans ahead and puts his or her full faith in our Lord to decide what is best so that the result from the planning is ultimately to do God's will and to glorify Him. Thank you for listening. Praise to our Lord Jesus Christ, and God bless.